Hi, everybody. Welcome to day 18 of our 30-day music mini challenge. Today's challenge is probably one of the most important things we do, not only as musicians, but as human beings, and that's to seek feedback. In other words, AKA seeking criticism. And seeking criticism is extremely important. As much as some of us, want to know that we're doing a good job and revel in our fabulousness, it doesn't really help us learn. It doesn't help us grow. It doesn't help us further our study. And honestly, for me, I've always found that when I've gotten that kind of feedback, it's not very constructive. It doesn't really help me know what I'm doing right necessarily. Oftentimes it's general terms. And so it's really important to seek that feedback, that criticism that helps you grow as a musician, makes you a better musician, makes you a better player, makes you a better human being, right? So we want to learn, we want to grow. So my challenge for you today is to seek feedback, whether it's from a professional, from a teacher, from a community member, from a friend, from a family member. One of my favorite stories about Julius Baker when I would work with him is he would talk about when he was auditioning for the New York Phil. He was the principal for a very long time. And now, granted, this was a long time ago and is not a safe thing to do now, certainly with what we know about stranger danger. But back in the day, he used to go downstairs from his apartment in New York City, and he would just gather random people from the street and have them come up to his apartment and play for them to practice playing for his audition. Wild, right? It's not something that we can really see ourselves doing really right now, and certainly not today's climate. But that's a really important part of growing and becoming better performers, becoming better learners, and as I said before, becoming better human beings. So your challenge is to seek this criticism. And, the person that you're seeking the criticism from doesn't necessarily need to be a musician. My mother, for example, she never really took any lessons. She, had no formal music training. She would occasionally sing in her church choir, but that was about it. And that was more when she was younger. But when I was growing up and playing my flute, she would say, sounds a little shrill there. And oftentimes she didn't use the right words to describe exactly what was happening. She didn't have that vocabulary, but she could tell. She was like, I think something could be better. Me, of course, as a youngster was like, this is how it's supposed to be, even when it wasn't. But so don't do that. Don't do that. Take that criticism, own it, love it, get better from it. That's the way we grow. So that's really an important fact. So your bonus challenge is to reach out to our Colleges of the Fenway community on the Facebook page or here on YouTube and seek criticism, seek feedback. It takes a risk to do that, but it's such an important part of the process. And if there's someone or if you're not sure, let's put it this way, if you're not sure what you could be doing better, seek a professional who has that knowledge, who can say, the way you did this nuance here, or your sound here, or your articulation here, there could be something that you're not hearing that can be improved. And it's important to go to that next level. So for example, for me, I'm never satisfied. And most professional musicians are never satisfied. There's always something in our bucket list that we need to do in a certain piece, in a certain etude, in a scale. As I tell all my students, I can continually improve on hot cross buns, whether it's articulation, sound, connectivity, dynamics, rhythmic expression. Such a simple melody can actually elicit so much depth, the more that you know about your instrument and about the different levels that you can achieve with that instrument. So if you're not getting constructive feedback, if people are like just reveling in your fabulousness and, you're so fantastic, seek out someone that can hear that next step or guide you to that next step. Or like I said, open yourself up to the community And the important thing is to listen and take it in and not take anything personally. I think so often as musicians, we take so much of our craft so personally. It's such a part of us that when someone criticizes it, it's like they're like, hurting you, and at least I certainly went through a big phase of this in high school and college, not helpful at all. So I recommend to you that you take an objective look at your music. This is certainly something that you're producing, certainly something that you care very much about. But we can always learn from something else. And just because someone has a lot of feedback to give you doesn't mean that you're any lesser of a musician, any lesser of a human being. It just means that these are the different ways that you can grow. And the more you can take that knowledge and use it and utilize it and not take it personally and not take it defensively. I think that's a big thing in my studio with a lot of my students. In fact, most of my most talented students, they get very defensive, oh, well, I didn't do that, or, well, I didn't mean to, or it was an accident, or, well, it's just something. There's always an excuse. And it's really important to own our mistakes, own what we don't know. It's okay not to know, or it's okay not to be able to show every time. Or if your teacher or the feedback is saying something that you already know, you don't need to say that you already knew it. That's you're getting the feedback that you may know it, but you're not showing it. And so your challenge is to show what you know. And certainly, obviously, there's certain feedback that we're going to get that's not helpful, or perhaps it's in a style that we don't necessarily want to go into that direction. I know from an artistic perspective, I have certain ways that I feel strongly about rhythmic expression and phrasing, and other people have different ideas, and that's okay. However, I definitely want to hear those other ideas, and I want to be able to execute those ideas. I think that's really an important thing too. So often, we dismiss the things that we're not used to, that we don't know a lot about, and we dismiss it without even really giving that other idea a shot. I love sitting on my kids' lessons and other teachers, because I'm always learning kind of a different take, a different perspective, a different way of looking at it. And I learn a lot. And if I went into it thinking, oh my gosh, I'm the best thing ever, and I don't need anything from anybody else, and well, I just know it all, that wouldn't help me, and it certainly wouldn't help me grow, and it certainly wouldn't make me the teacher that I want to be. I want to be open, and sometimes my students are the ones that have the amazing ideas, and in fact, they often do. I find that students and younger people tend to think in a more out-of-the-box fashion, and I think that's really important to embrace and think about and consider. And so, anyway, I'm going on and on. This is such an important aspect to our lives as musicians, and I think it's so important, and I think it's something that I think a lot of us probably struggle with the most, and so there's much to talk about this. But that's it for today. So your challenge, again, to remind you, is to seek feedback. The basic challenge is from anybody. It can be on a short phrase. Make it mini. Don't make it a big deal. And it could just be, hey, I'm going to play this thing for you off the top of my head. And what do you think? Just to get yourself out there. Ask the question, and your bonus challenge is to reach out to your community in a more public way, because that takes a big risk, and that's what's going to make us grow the most. I hope you're all doing well, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully tomorrow.